There's no other way to describe it. Much of the mainstream media has mounted a campaign against Donald Trump, warning that he's just too dangerous to be allowed to win a second term. This isn't just reporting or commenting on the sometimes over-the-top things that Trump says, like his talk about retribution or getting even with opponents, or saying he'll go after what he calls the enemy of the people. I've criticized plenty of things Trump has said and done over the years, and as a leading presidential candidate, he should be aggressively scrutinized. Yet, after 9 years of a hostile relationship with the media, suddenly there's not even a pretense of fairness. The Atlantic has just published an entire issue on how the former president is a danger to democracy. The New York Times keeps running some version of that story. The Washington Post filled several inside pages with an anti-Trump opinion piece, and all that reverberates across television.
I think that people have normalized the possibility of Trump coming back to office. We get used to anything. This time, he is coming bent on revenge.
The lead story in this morning's New York Times is warning how a second term could unleash a darker Trump, highlighting the former president's violent and authoritarian rhetoric.
There is a clear path to dictatorship in the United States, and it's getting shorter every day. That's Robert Kagan, a former Reagan official, writing in the Washington Post.
There's a growing agreement and acute concern, I think, across the political spectrum about the explicitly authoritarian threat of a second Trump term.
It's a very special issue of The Atlantic where they have the same people writing the same articles. They usually write about how terrible Donald Trump is and how much he's a real threat to be an authoritarian this time around.
I've had journalists say, well, he is a dictator, an authoritarian, and a fascist, so they have no choice. But ultimately, this is about the credibility of our business and why half the country no longer trusts the press. I'm Howard Kurtz, and this is Media Buzz. Ahead, how the media are handling devastating new tax evasion charges against Hunter Biden. At an Iowa town hall, Sean Hannity gave Donald Trump two opportunities to respond to the mounting media criticism about his second term.
Do you in any way have any plans whatsoever, if reelected president, to abuse power, to break the law, to use the government to go after people?
You mean like they're using right now?
The media has been focused on this and attacking you. Under no circumstances. You are promising America tonight you would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Except
Look,
what?
he's going crazy. Except for day one.
Joining us now to analyze the coverage in Nashville, Clay Travis, the founder of OutKick and co-host of a nationally syndicated radio show. And in New York, Harold Ford, the former Democratic congressman and Fox News contributor. Clay, what do you make of this constant media campaign warning of the dangers of a second Trump term in these major publications and on certain networks?
Well, they're trying to play the hits, Howard, and good to see you too, Harold. I think they know ratings skyrocketed during Donald Trump's presidency and during his campaigns. And if you look at CNN and MSNBC in the gutter like they are, the Washington Post on track to lose $100 million, the New York Times struggling some with subscriptions, as the Washington Post is too, this is playing the hits. But I would say two things associated with this. One, I think for the general public, there's a boy who cried wolf here scenario. When you've got a war in Europe and you've got a war going on right now in the Middle East and you got lack of security at the southern border and crime and all of the issues that are going on right now in our country, it's hard to argue, oh, Trump's going to be so much worse. And one thing jumped out at me, and I'd be curious to hear what Harold would think about this too. Wall Street Journal poll that just came out on early Saturday morning. One measure there really struck me, and I jotted it down here. Has the physical stamina to be president, Trump versus Biden. 48-14, Trump wins that argument. So they have to figure something out that takes away from Biden's issues, and so the focus needs to be Trump as opposed to Biden's physical fitness. That number's crazy, 48-14.
Trump and the press used to have a love-hate relationship. Now it's mostly hate. So, Harold, I get that the former president brings some of this on himself. He clearly deflected Sean Hannity's questions about abuse of power. And then he said, well, I want to drill, drill, drill and close the border. That's not abuse of power, Sean pointed out. But is much of the media crossing a bright line here and becoming the opposition party?
So first off, happy Sunday. It's great to see you and my old friend Clay. I'd say two things. First, I would agree largely with what you have said, how you frame this, and Clay, in that the media needs to be careful. Donald Trump, for a long time in politics, has been able to construct a vision and a portrait of himself as standing up for a lot of people in this country who believe they've been left behind or forgotten and pushed back or pushed down. And the way he's done it has not always been agreeable with some in the press, or for that matter, some who oppose him. I do think that the bigger issue for this campaign, and Clay touched on it right then as he talked about the polling and the Wall Street Journal piece in the first part of what he said. If the economy is in better shape in 6 months, if Democrats address the border issue, I think the border issue will be as critical an issue on the minds of many independent-minded voters and swing voters as any.
Right.
And then the last is, if you look at the last two elections, the issue that has been, at least the last election, where you had 3 or 4 races in Kentucky and Ohio in particular, the issue of women's health as it relates to abortion remains at the forefront of a lot of voters' minds. So whomever is to win this next election, be it Biden or Trump, or maybe there may be other candidates, are going to have to address the border and abortion. Democrats have the advantage on abortion. And if the economy is better, as we know, Howie and Clay, incumbents generally do better in a presidential race if the economy is improving, and Americans feel that improvement going to the election.
I want to play this clip, another clip from the Iowa town hall where former President Trump is talking about President Biden.
We have a man that can't put 2 sentences together. We have a man that doesn't know he's alive. And he's backed up by the media. The biggest problem we have, the media. The media is fake.
I want the morning show producers to watch us and all the producers to watch us. This is just not rhetoric. We're absolutely dead serious. The deep state, the administrative state, the 4th branch of government never mentioned in the Constitution, is going to be taken apart brick by brick. And the people that did these evil deeds will be held accountable and prosecuted, criminal prosecutions.
So, Clay, with help from Sean Hannity, who's a longtime openly supportive of Donald Trump, here you have the president taking a whack at Biden, but also including the media in his indictment.
Yeah, I think it's a criticism that's going to play well for Trump. Look, if I were the political consultant taking a step back and saying, let's presume we have Trump v. Biden part 2, who wins the race and how do they win the race? I think Trump focusing on Biden's physical and mental fitness is a huge win for Trump, as I just cited in that Wall Street Journal poll. I can't imagine there's been any race that we have seen in modern American history where one guy has been seen 34 points better in terms of just being able to do the job. But look, we've got 2 incumbents, basically. Right. You've got the Trump incumbency and you got the Biden incumbency. If Trump is the story, I think Biden has a chance to win. If Biden's failures as president, as Trump conveys it, is the story, then I think Trump's going to win. Usually the election is a referendum on the incumbent. What's a little bit unique here is we basically have 2 incumbencies.
Exactly.
And we haven't seen anything like this in anyone's life.
Harold, here you have Steve Bannon, one-time campaign chairman, former top White House official, and pardoned by Trump, saying he's dead serious about the media and other opponents and using the phrase criminal prosecutions. Harold.
You're asking, I'm sorry, I thought you were going to show a clip. Look, I think the advisors around the president, their words are more alarming than what and how President Trump is explaining. We're accustomed to President Trump. That doesn't mean that it's accepted, but we're accustomed to him talking about how he may behave towards those who may have, he thinks have taken shots at him unfairly. But the press in our country, and to hear those who talk about it, I don't think they understand the history of the role that the media and the press play in our country. We certainly have more press and media today than we did 25, 50, 100 years ago because of the proliferation of smartphones and the way you're able to convey information, assemble information and convey it, whether it's true or not. But to say that a big piece of what you want to do if you're elected to political office, the most important office in the country, I might add, is to go after the press. We'll have to see how voters respond to that. The one thing that I am relieved about, how is that they are saying these things. And I think voters have every right to have a greater sense of what a candidate at for any office, what he or she intends to do. And thankfully, President Trump and many of his advisors are making it very plainly clear that they plan on taking on an important part of the American establishment.
Yeah, sometimes it's his own words. Now, the other day, Joe Biden said off camera that he probably wouldn't have run again if Trump was not in the race. And then he was questioned by reporters. Take a look.
Would you be running for president if Trump wasn't running?
I expect so, but look, he is running, and I have to run.
Would you drop out if Trump runs out?
No, not now.
Clay, what do you make of the Biden remarks and then him sort of partially walking it back?
I think if we had been having this conversation in January of 2021, the expectation among much of the nation, including me, was that Joe Biden would be president for one term, given his age, that he would step down and he would hand the proverbial baton to Kamala Harris, and she would be the nominee in 2024.
Or someone else.
I actually think the fact that Biden is running is a testament to, one, the bench not being very deep for the Democrat Party. I'm not sure anybody polls much better against Trump than Biden does, even though he's polling poorly right now. But two, I think Kamala Harris has been such a disappointment to so many people in the Democrat Party. They really thought she was the next person up for this job, and it would be a transition to a new era of Democrat leadership. But she polls so much worse than Biden that I think Democrats are trying to avoid letting her be the nominee. And especially based on this identity politics coalition, there's a challenge how it would not be racist and sexist by Democrat-owned standards for the current vice president not to be the nominee in 2024 or, frankly, for 2028.
Look,
and I think that's a real challenge, figuring out how they go and move beyond her, which is why I think Biden's running.
Look, if Joe Biden were to for some reason pull out, you'd have 50 Democrats who would try to get that nomination. But Harold, what Biden is essentially saying is, I'm the only Democrat who can beat Trump. I've done it before, but that's undercut somewhat by the abysmal polls and the hole that he's in right now. That could change, but that's where we are right now.
I think you're right. I think that the data shows, as you showed from the outset, he's almost tied, I think Mr. Trump's a few points ahead of Mr. Biden. And then the candidate that really moves ahead is Governor Haley or Ambassador Haley. But we're months out still. And I still believe if the economy, if people believe, I think some of the numbers suggest the economy is improving. Things are down that you want to be down, and things are going up that you want to be going up. But if everyday Americans don't feel that way, there are a long list of politicians who've tried to tell voters, you're doing better than you think. And most of those politicians are sitting at home on their sofas watching television this morning. The truth of the matter is people have to feel that way. So we shall see. But I don't disagree with what Clay said about the way this election is sort of unfolded here, and even some of the doubts that some Democrats have about Vice President Harris, which is surprising because she had such a prolific and promising performance output before she became. It's just worked out.
A moment of agreement. And I just want to say, journalists who say, oh, well, he is a fascist. If you think that, then you should quit your journalism jobs and go campaign against him rather than using news organizations to mount this campaign, which I think is a lot louder than it's ever been. When we come back, the president of the University of Pennsylvania just resigned under pressure after failing to condemn genocide against the Jewish people.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.